1.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And we're going to get started this evening with our monthly meeting. Today, December 1st, 2022. First of all, I'd like to thank those that have joined us for this meeting. And of course, our esteemed commissioners that are here. And we're going to move right along with our agenda as it's printed. I'd like to ask everyone to honor a moment of silence, please. Thank you. All right, Vice Chair Austin Wilson will not be joining us tonight, so I've asked Commissioner Riley Wright to do the roll call.
Joe Austin.
Here.
Courtney Austin Wilson. Brenda Dietz.
Present.
Lavelle McMichaels. Faith McCauley.
Present.
Doris Patrick.
Present.
Constance Reynolds. Janet Riley Wright, which I'm present. Robert Sims. So are we still waiting for Mr. Sims to be remote?
If he joins us, we'll
Okay.
make
Bridget Tolliver. Robert Williamson.
Present.
Councilman Holmes.
Present.
Councilman Johnson.
Thank you. Let me first say that please keep Vice Chair Courtney Austin Wilson in your prayers. She had death in her family, and that's why she's not able to join us tonight. And Commissioner McMichael had another engagement that was set, previously, and he sends his regrets for not being able to attend. Commissioner Robert Sims is going to try to join us remotely, and if he does, then I will make note of that. All right, since we have some new faces on the commission, I want to turn it over to our facilitator to present some information that we all were presented with when we first started.
Thank you, Chairman Austin. I am about to share some information that all of you are already familiar with. However, Ms. Dietz, this will be new information for you since you are a newly appointed member, and as I understand it, this is your first meeting. Let me start off by welcoming you to the One High Point Commission. This is important work, and it's yeoman's work, and I believe that the fact that you were selected indicates that you're a strong person who's going to help carry this heavy load. So thank you very much for being here. When the group had its initial meeting, Mr. McCall.
Commissioner McCauley.
Okay,
Our first time joining us.
Forgive me, please. I missed your names. Welcome also to you, and like my strong sister here, I believe you're a strong sister who's prepared to help carry this load. When the group first had its initial meeting back on June the 2nd of 2022, the members discussed ideal participation guidelines, and these guidelines that were laid out, which I'm going to share in a quick minute, started off as guidelines, but to the extent that you use them on a regular basis, they then become your group norms. And they are as I'm about to present. The first guideline is mutual respect, and what that means is that it is okay to disagree, but it is not okay to attack, shame, or blame one another. Secondly, that you should be prepared to do this work And this means putting in the effort between meetings to help maximize the time for each session. There's a lot of work to be had. And if you can put in sufficient time between meetings, then it adds to the efficiencies of the group. To be honest, and this honesty has to do with, sharing in the conversation, share your real thoughts and feelings about things, and that is okay. As we've said to the group on previous occasions, you all will find that you can have the tough, honest talk about the work that you're involved in, and you're going to leave out of this building, and you realize that the world did not come to an end. It's still there. So that means that you can have this conversation. That you be committed, and this simply means putting in the time to actually get the job done. As I said, there's a lot of work. Time-wise, we're probably close to the halfway point of this process, and the work is going to pick up in the coming months, and I think that there will be some discussion about that later on in the meeting today. That you have healthy debates, and it really is about debates and everyone getting an opportunity to share their ideas and suggestions. It's not about having arguments. That you be open to new concepts. This work, in terms of your openness, it's like it's just like having a parachute. Parachutes don't operate properly if they're not open. Don't be afraid to be specific or speak your truth. Speak for yourself. Know that you have the right to disagree. You don't have to nod and go along with everyone because you're new to the group. If you have your strong opinions about things, it's okay to state those things. Be open to opportunity. This means that your point may not be the best or the brightest in the room, and we ask that you consider the ideas of others in the group. Everyone, the points that will be made by each of you tonight are equally important across the board. Ask yourself, do you allow your biases to manage you, or do you manage your biases? And everyone has biases, and biases can be a good thing, but you need to make sure that you're appropriately using your biases, and you're constantly in contact with your own biases as you do this work. That you hear to understand. Hearing different views allows you to have the ability to listen to understand versus listening to defend yourself or to respond. We have often said to this group, there's a reason the word listen and the word silent contain the same letters. Feel safe to dissent. Groupthink can be dangerous. We don't need everyone to think alike. And that you all strive to be great together. No one of you alone will ever be as great as all of you together. And these are the guidelines, and we hope that you understand and accept them, and we believe that to the extent that they are implemented by each of you in the group, that it will make this work make this work easy to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Facilitator Ratchford. To ensure that we get through this agenda in a timely manner, and we're not rushing at all, we've added a timeline to the agenda so that we can move along smoothly. This will be is incorporated tonight and will be incorporated in our agendas moving forward. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Commissioner Deeds and to welcome again Commissioner McCauley. One of the strong suits of this commission is the diversity of experiences. And each person up here brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We each have our opinions, and we will be voicing those as we move through this process. But we have agreed that the final document will be based on research and data. Okay? Our goal tonight is to complete and approve a budget so that we can move forward with that piece. And if you notice on the agenda, that is the that will take most of the time, or the time that's allotted for this meeting. And at this time, I want to briefly address the removal of one of our commissioners. If you have any questions, you can refer to, as far as the process goes, you can refer to page 2 of the resolution, which outlines how that process worked as far as appointing commissioners. And if anyone wants to make comment, we're going to put that in the parking lot for the end of the meeting and give you a brief moment to make any comments that you have. And of course, I'll be happy to speak with anybody after the meeting that wish to talk about it. On November 13th, we had a wonderful time. We met with the community at the YWCA. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Commissioner McMichaels, who actually set everything up so that we could be present and present to the community what it is we're trying to accomplish and how we're moving through that process. I'd like to thank Commissioner Holmes and for being on the panel, and Commissioner Riley Wright for facilitating. She had a tough job that night. There was a lot of information that she had to cover, and she did a fantastic job with that. I'd also like to thank Pastor Brad Lilly, who is the chair of the NAACP's Reparations Committee and was also on the panel with us. And publicly want to thank the YWCA for allowing us the time to meet with the community. At this time, I want to turn it over to Commissioner Holmes to give us a brief update or summary of that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe that this was a very successful forum. Our first effort to do so, to engage the community on the purpose and the plan for the One High Point Commission. What we did there was to delineate what the purpose is for the One High Point Commission, why it was established, what our outcomes that we're seeking based on research and factual evidence that we've compiled, along with detailing historical inequities and the costs and opportunities from those historical inequities on the Black community of High Point. And so one of the distinctions that we make in the One High Point Commission is the difference between what a federal reparations package would look like and municipal restorative economic policies. And so to go along with one of our working groups of the One High Point Commission, which is Councilman Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Sims, and myself, we were tasked with identifying the differences between what a federal reparations package would look like, which would also be supported by the lineage-based method, and municipal restorative economic policies. And so as we detailed those and what the cost would be, what exactly would fall under the auspices of a federal reparations package, we talked about the historical theft of labor, of land, we talked about the theft of intellectual property, we talked about the suppression of wages, the loss of educational opportunities, and how those things have impacted the economic development of the communities, Black communities across the country. We talked about some of the terrorist activities that have set communities back due to loss of property and businesses and economic opportunity from some of those policies. We talked about redlining in terms of housing. All these things established what would fall under the corrective measures at a federal level. And part of the text that we use to differentiate between what happens at a federal level and municipal level is the book by Dr. Darity, who talks about the ability, financial ability of the federal government to address and redress these issues versus cities and municipalities. And so as we establish a basic baseline cost measure for a federal reparations package, we're beginning in the trillions of dollars. And so no state alone, especially no municipality alone, has the ability or the financial wherewithal to be able to address those because they essentially do not have the financial capabilities. As a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of traveling to Kansas City, Missouri several weeks ago to the National League of Cities, and I had a chance to sit in on a study of racial disparities in economic repair. And you would be surprised to think that a lot of cities around the country are leaning into efforts very similar to ours. And so I had a chance to speak with the city councilman from Dallas, Texas. They've established a department within the city government to address racial disparities and inequities on a policy-based measure. Even a city the size of Dallas, with the financial resources of Dallas, are not taking the federal approach to addressing. They are going on a restorative policy measure. So if a city the size of Dallas does not feel that they have the financial wherewithal to be able to do a federal-based package, then certainly High Point should follow suit. Now, one thing that I'm very proud of is that they are essentially at the genesis, and so they've established a department very similar to our diversity, equity, and inclusion department, and they've started some studies. And so they've moved pretty far, but I will be proud to say that we have put together a complete and comprehensive restorative economic package that I think could be a model for the rest of the country. So for us to be able to address this, we should take the lead from Dr. Darity and look at some of our counterparts, larger counterparts around the country, and look at the methods they're taking from restorative economic policies. And so that's the distinction that we sought to make at the YWCA between what exactly federal reparations are and what restorative economic policies are. And I think we did that very clearly and distinctly at that forum.
And we received a lot of positive feedback from those that were in attendance. And let me say publicly again that we want to thank the YWCA, but I want to thank all the people that attended. That night, it was raining, and it was cold. And just like I do, when the weather is like that, we do not come out. But we had, I would say about 50 people there, somewhere in that range. It was a great turnout, and if anybody that was there is listening now, I want to publicly thank you for attending that session. Okay, in following our agenda, we're going to move forward with our budget discussion, okay? Based on the last meeting, I want to make a suggestion that we talk about adding another line item to what was presented at the last meeting. And that line item is a general category for content experts, to do the research, and I'm proposing an amount of $20,000 for that. Under that category, there are several pieces of the resolution that could fall under there, such as redlining and genealogy, and the Economist, and so forth. I want to put that on the table for discussion as we go forward with the budget discussion. And I will now turn it over to our facilitator, Mr. Ratchford, to guide us through this discussion.
I'm sorry, Commissioner. I did not completely hear what you just said,
Oh, okay.
that you want the,
Yeah, what I was saying is that I would like to suggest adding a general line item for a content expert. And by adding that, at a cost of about $20,000. By adding that line item, we could possibly cover several of the points in the resolution that we are charged to research, such as redlining, an economist, genealogist, and so forth. So just want to put it on the table for discussion.
Okay.
Mr. Ratcher?
Thank you, Chairman Austin, again. Before we have the budget discussions tonight, and in a minute, I'm going to share with you all the goals for the discussion and how perhaps our talks, or your talks on the budget should go. But before I do that, I did want to share a couple of things that I've been thinking about regarding the commission and the budget discussions that you're going to have tonight. You all will recall a couple of months ago, I had spoken to you all about the need for you to focus and keep your eye on the prize. And I think that also applies when you're dealing with, as you're discussing and dealing with this budget. You have to keep your eyes on the prize, and the budget has to fall within what the prize actually is. Whatever you decide budget-wise, first of all, it should be relevant and it should be realistic. And what's relevant and what's realistic is actually informed by the resolution that created the One High Point Commission. The work to be done and whatever monies you all might need to get that work done, it's right there in the resolution, so be mindful of that. Very often people think of a budget as a wish list. And this can be a wish list. However, it should be a wish list of those things that you need and not necessarily what you want. And again, what you need is informed by the resolution. And so we'd ask that you keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that the budget that you have will actually become foundation and platform to allow you all an opportunity to be good stewards of the monies that will be given to you in a responsible way to do your work. And if you are good stewards of that money and you do a good job, the next time you come and ask for money, it just makes the second acts and any subsequent acts after that really, it should get easier as opposed to getting harder. So I would ask that you all keep these things in mind as you're having your budget discussions tonight. You all should have a copy of this so you're able to see it on your computers, is it? Okay, you all should be able to see it as we go through this. But these are the goals for the discussion that you all should have on your budget. One, we will start from $0. This is what we call a zero-based budget, and decide what items the commission needs to reach its final proposed budget for later consideration by City Council. Whatever you all come up with tonight, and we're hoping that we'll actually finish this process tonight, but whatever you all decide on will have to be will be in the form of a request to city government, and city government by way of the council will make the decision as to whether this is approved or not. And hopefully, I think if it's done in the correct way, they will approve it. By the end of the meeting, we should have finalized the budget as I've stated, and it will be key that we work efficiently and adhere to the ground rules we agreed to earlier in the meeting. Again, that requires that you stay focused, don't get off on some tangents that may get you away from the things that you need to do to get the budget to do this work. The budget discussion that you're going to have will address each item line by line. However, I'd like to reiterate just a few things. You will be given priority to high point focused, high point specific work, and that's important. The commission's direction will ultimately inform the resources needed You must therefore delineate budget items that support cash payments versus items that support restorative policies. And I think this ties back into the conversation or the points that were made earlier by Councilman Holmes. We're hoping that you will use the survey feedback to start your discussion on each of the budget items. You got a lot of great feedback with that survey. And it's my understanding that all of you, with the exception of maybe 3, actually provided some feedback to the survey regarding the budget. This budget will identify only the operational needs of the commission and not specific service providers. That will come up later. And instead, those service providers will be identified through the city's normal procurement process, and interested parties can contact staff for consideration. In other words, you have no ability to go to your friends or people who you think might do a good job in doing the work and give them a contract. There's a formal process that the city has to go through, and eventually, with whatever funds you're given, those processes will have to be adhered to. Okay, and so before we get into the line-by-line discussions, are there any questions with anything that I've said so far? Any issues or concerns? Okay, perfect. We're going to ask you, whoever is controlling the slides, if they will go to the slide regarding content experts. At the top, it says budget item 1, content experts, proposed $20,000. And that's the item that the chairman just spoke about a minute ago to be added to the budget as a line item, a general, in a general way. And he has stated why he feels that this is necessary. I'm going to give you all just a quick second to read some of the comments here, and then think about what Chairman Austin has shared regarding why he thinks this is necessary, and then let's have some discussion on this. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds, ask that you be quick readers. You'll note at the bottom that it says, because this category may also overlap with other categories, like the redlining, economists, freedmen, and the genealogists, if you agree on this line item, you may not require those other individual line items. Again, you want this budget to be tight and relevant and realistic.
May I ask a question?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
This shows that the across-the-board ceiling of $10,000 be used for research, but the budget request is for $20,000? Is there something that I'm missing there, or?
And actually, I believe that particular item that you just read is not indicating $10,000 for this particular item for the content.
So $10,000 then for the research of the categories down below with a budget of $20,000?
No, what this actually is, it represents one of the responses to the survey that was sent out. And I actually wrote this off. I can tell you what it's supposed to represent. I did write that, and after thinking about it, more, looked at making the proposal for a general line item for content experts, because what I actually did was listed $10,000 for each one of those categories.
Okay, I see.
But we are we'll probably be able to get a content expert that can provide information on several of those items without doing it individually. So that was my thought process to suggesting the $20,000, but that's just a comment in the survey.
So, Mr. Chairman, so if we're going to introduce a line item for content experts, does that mean we're going to be deleting line items specifically for redlining or economists or any genealogists? Is this category, this line item, catch-all expectation for the budget? Because if it's duplicative, if we're expecting the content experts to be someone who is providing subject matter expertise on redlining economists, then it seems like these are duplicated line items.
I believe that's the point that the chairman was making initially, is that you have those items of a redlining economist, a freedman, and a genealogist. And if you look at that in bold at the bottom, it says, because this category may also overlap with those things, then all we would need is $20,000, and the $40,000 that may be needed for those individually, you may not need it all. So it does away with the duplication.
And let me also make a statement as far as American Freedmen. That line item is for a genealogist. You know, the Freedman was a suggestion as to a person that could possibly fill that line item, but the line item itself is genealogy.
And I believe also, the point here is that if the group decides that you're going to accept the recommendation of the chair to have this $20,000 for a content expert, then as we get to the sections regarding redlining and economists and freedmen and a genealogist, that you will consider not making those requests, because this in fact covers it, and it reduces the budget.
Let me correct myself. It's not for the genealogist, but it's for the history. Yeah, it's the history.
Helpful? Okay. Any other questions regarding content experts, or a line item for content experts?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Question. In terms of our initial investigation of content experts, we feel $20,000 would be sufficient to be able to cover the cost of subject matter experts of an individual nature, or have we possibly located someone who has multiple expertise that could possibly address all of these issues simultaneously?
We've inquired with a couple of different entities or sources for this information, and that average cost was right around $20,000.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
So this is Commissioner Riley Wright. So I guess my question is still, that looks like a heavy load for one person to carry, in my personal opinion. If we thought it was a big deal for, we were speaking about each of those categories like it was a lot for anybody to cover within the time frame in which we have. So now we're saying that one person can actually pull all of this off within our time frame, so that's concerning for me.
And we're not specifically talking about a person.
Okay.
You know, when you put the information out, 9 times out of 10, an entity that has several people working with them, so we're looking at an organization, company, whatever, as opposed to individuals. Now, there is a procurement process. So that information is put out there. If somebody feels that they can fill that role based on the RFP that's sent out, then it's viewed for consideration.
Right.
But I don't think one person
Okay.
possibly do all this.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to add that I know that there's been some prior research done that we could probably deliver to whoever this person is. I know Hyper University did a very comprehensive study on the effects of systemic racism in high point. Maybe that could cut down on some of the research time and hours
Great
to
deal.
be able to have this person fall within our budget line item here.
And UNCG did a very detailed, comprehensive study on High Point, and it covered several of those areas. So, you know, and it was a lot of good baseline information.
Right.
But, you know, whomever we bring on board would have to do a deep dive into that, but there is information that they can start with.
Okay.
Chairman Austin and Commissioner Riley Wright, I would also remind you all, if you look at the top black box on the slide, it says content experts, plural, and so it would not be just that one person. It would be how many other people you need to get that information that you need.
May I ask another question? Commissioner Dietz, I'm looking at the bullet for community violence, and I want to just ask a question because it appears that some of these components may be broad enough that they could stand alone as a separate initiative for the city to look at. And, you know, I guess I would ask the question, do we have evidence that the community violence piece would be a part of this particular committee?
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, if I could address that.
Right here.
Commissioner Deeds, the purpose here is if there is an item or a topic that is as broad as community violence, that we would also make any recommendations from studies to the city at large. We do have a community safety committee that lies within the city. So the comprehensive package that we put off to the city would also go to some of the city entities to be able to help us to address this. The One High Point Commission alone wouldn't be established to address that as a subject. It would be more of a recommendation that the city can take in terms of policy to be able to make take broader actions at the city level.
Right.
Say for instance, Councilman Johnson has long championed police substations in areas that are of high violence. And so that could be part of the recommendation to the city that they can take on as part of our recommendation package for the One High Point.
But would that be separate from the reparation portion that we're looking at? I guess I'm confused as to like the scope
Right.
of this, so
looking
it's
at-
such a worthy topic, I don't want to
Absolutely.
get it pushed in under reparations when there's,
Right.
in my opinion, a lot of work that needs to be done just on that one component.
I agree, but having done some comparison and benchmarking against other cities, they don't separate that out, because if you look at economic development, if you have high areas of high crime, you have low areas of economic development and business activity. So being able to address that, and maybe it's something that we make recommendations to in parallel to the economic policies that we do here, but I don't think if we're going to be successful at bringing prosperity to challenged areas, especially of African Americans challenged in the city, that we can do that without making recommendations on how to address community safety.
Okay, fair enough.
Commissioner Deets, I would add to that, what you see here in the light blue, there was a survey of all of the members, and they gave their suggestions and ideas. So this was a suggestion and idea from one of the respondents to the survey. None of this is cast in stone.
That's an excellent question, though. You're absolutely right.
But yeah, you're absolutely right on target, absolutely.
And what we're trying to do is establish a monetary amount that we're gonna ask city council to provide. So, it would be based on the agreement of everybody here. I just made the recommendation of $20,000. You know, if you want to increase that or decrease it, you can do so and present that information, and we can move forward with whatever amount that you suggest. But the idea is that we need content experts to pull this information together, because we alone don't have the ability to, or the time to get out and just do this on our own.
And so we have spent a lot of time on this one line item. And I don't know if you all want to go through all of the line items and then decide what you want to do, or sort of pick and choose as you go. It's your decision.
So this is Commissioner Riley, right? Before we, technically, unless I'm misunderstanding something, we have not yet included this as a true line item, or have we?
You have not.
You have not? No,
All right.
In fact, that's what I was asking.
you have not.
This is Commissioner Patrick. I did read the budget. I answered the budget, studied what was in there. A lot of that, like Commissioner Austin said, can be put together. A lot of this work has already been done. Like Councilman Holmes says, there's work at one college, work at High Point U, genealogists and Freedmen that can come under one line item. I would like to offer a motion that we do accept the I got to get this wording right. The content, am I going to say?
Content experts.
Use that and put all this together, increasing maybe the funds that not a whole lot though, that he suggested. And I'm not sure I put that correctly, but I'm asking that we take this and receive what Commissioner Austin has said.
So if I'm understanding you, what I'm hearing you say is that you want to have a line item for content experts. You wanted to cover those things that the chairman
Exactly.
has identified on this particular page, on this slide.
Yes.
And that you think that it might need more than $20,000 to do that work.
Yeah, maybe 5,000 more, something like that, or 10, not more. But since most of this has been done, and all of us could help him find the right place, I mean, he could ask. I'm sure he know already, that person would know already how to find information.
Mm-hmm.
He would be smart enough to pick up all of that and put that together with less work and time that we think. Most of the time you look at all that, you think it's time consuming. But if somebody has already done the work for you, you got to be smart enough to just go get it and put it together.
Jerome, were you about to say something?
I think it was answered to echo what Jerron Hollis, Managing Director, City of High Point, to echo what Chairman Austin said earlier. We have begun, people are paying attention to this effort, and we have begun to receive interest of people that want to be considered for some of the work that we're talking about. So his number of 20,000 is in line with what we're seeing for probably several subject matter experts. And the piece that makes it really dynamic and efficient is the people that are up for, that they want to be considered, not only have they done the information and research, but they also be prepared to help with suggested policy recommendations for the commission to consider. I think as we were talking through some of these sections, especially without information, without high point relevant information early on, it seemed like, to Commissioner Riley Wright's point, that it's such a huge daunting task. But if we think about any of our professions, things that we do every day come easier to us than someone that doesn't know exactly what it is that we do. So I think that number, to your point, from what we've seen so far, that number is spot on. So I think that will cover, based on what we're hearing and seeing, but it's up to the group. But that number is really close, and I think that's some of the information and detail that kind of led Mr. Chair to that number. But we are starting to get interest, and those numbers are close for what we're seeing or coming in.
Okay, then, well, may I restate my statement that I was saying, and I hope I said it right, that we accept the suggestion that our Chair Commissioner Austin had stated in the beginning, that we accept the whole thing, including the money, and move forward from here. That's my,
This is.
And a motion to accept budget item number 1? Is that what?
well, is this budget item number 1? It's got all the other things that we were working on in there with this one thing, so yes.
Okay.
This is
Yes.
Commissioner Riley Wright. I was just hoping we'd have the opportunity to go through the entire thing and see if we still feel that way and hear what the other people had to say as well before we accept that as just a catch-all.
But my feeling is, we have, some of us on reparation, I should say, reparation. We have studied a lot of this, and we've been over it, so
I'm not
It's sort of
disagreeing with
redundant.
that. I just feel like we should have the opportunity to hear what the other input was.
did we not have it in writing?
Oh, it is, and that's what we're going through tonight.
Yeah, and that's,
We're going through all the input of
Okay.
all the line items tonight.
okay, so that we all have the same understanding. The
Yeah.
decision is that we won't vote on anything until after we've gone through all of the items.
So we'll
Okay.
table your motion.
Okay.
All right. So is there any other need for discussion on item 1? If not, we're going to move to the budget item number 2, redlining. And you will recall, based upon discussions regarding the first budget item, content experts, the feeling is that if that is in fact accepted, then you may not need number 2. But I want you just to be thinking about that as you read the feedback from the survey. And I'll give you about a minute to go through that, and then we'll come back and have some discussion, please. Okay, so your thoughts, please.
This is Commissioner Holmes. I think that as we look at line item 2, 3, and also possibly 5, I think that the new line item of the content expert essentially absorbs these. And I think that as a line item, they possibly are no longer necessary, but certainly the purpose of the line item has to be included in the work of that subject matter expert. In and of itself, the study of redlining and its effect on economic growth and we're just discussing the budget number assigned to the task of getting the research done on Redline.
That is correct.
We're keeping that as a portion of the study that will inform our policy offering. But whether or not how we assign it in terms of a budgetary number is what we're discussing right now. So I just want to make sure that everyone listening is clear that this is a very important part of restorative economic policies to understand the effects of redlining and housing on the loss of economic wealth and opportunity in the Black community. This is very much a part of what we're doing here. But what we're doing now is establishing a baseline budget figure around those studies. If I can say that. And I think line item 3, economists and genealogists will also probably fall within that same description. But we certainly can continue the next few budget items if anyone else has any other opinions.
Yeah, I have some comments on the other ones, as we move through
So
that.
we make a motion that we agree budget item 2 is captured under item number 1?
I think I think typically what we can do is we can get to the end of this, and if we can make a single motion.
Okay.
Then that would probably be on any item that would fall under the budget expert.
Okay.
And I don't want to monopolize the conversation, so,
Oh, go ahead.
but I do want to say that I attended a meeting yesterday on housing in High Point, Greensboro, Guilford County. And there's a lot of information that exists on this, and these are department heads and so forth that were presenting information on redlining and eminent domain, the housing situation in High Point specifically. So if we were to have a content expert that, as was stated, that knows how to glean the information from documents that already exist, then, it's there. It's just, again, and I use the term, taking a deeper dive in it, because their information was based on the city itself, and to break it down into how it affects the African-American community and the ability to gain generational wealth.
Right.
So any other comments or commentary on budget item number 2? If not, thank you, Councilman Holmes, for the segue to budget item number 3. And again, we'll ask you to give you a quick minute to look at what folk are saying in the comment section, which is the blue, light blue and dark blue in the middle. And then we'll have the same type of discussion regarding that. I think Councilman Holmes had started conversation relevant to 3 that's tied into what he said regarding budget item number 2. And he may want to repeat some of that.
No, I think it's an absolute necessity. We have to have assigned cost, opportunity cost, any way that we can calculate disparate impact, and only economists can do that. I mean, to be able to look at the cost of policy and its effect compound over time. For us to do that without signifying and actually capturing what was lost, I don't think we do this effort justice. Because I think folks have to understand the impact of these policies on communities and its compound of generations. Dallas has a team of economists that have calculated these numbers, and I think it has to be part of any subject matter experts that we bring in for us to be able to look at the measures and how far we have to go in terms of our recommendations. And I think this is an absolute necessity for us to have this conversation
So are you suggesting that this should be a separate line item or under content expert?
No, I think if we have content experts, I think that essentially implies that we have to have an economist as part of our content expert group. And I think that is stated, it has to be stated, that any content experts we bring in has to include an economist.
Absolutely. Commissioner Deets, I believe I saw your hand.
Yes, I would agree with that. I would just, you know, I'm looking at the timeline, 1859 to 1960. In our resolution, we are tasked with 1859 to the present. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, we want to make sure we capture years after 1960 in the task for the economist.
Yes.
And I think you're on the same page with the group.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, then, any additional commentary on budget item number 3? If not, we'll quickly move to number 4. Give you a quick minute to read that, and then we'll take your commentary. And Commissioner Deets, thank you for listening to the ground rules I read. You jumped right in and doing your thing. That's good. That's a good thing. Thank you. Okay, reactions or comments regarding budget item number 4, American Freedmen.
This is Commissioner Holmes. If I can provide some context on what this appears to be, Albuquerque, New Mexico established an Office of Indigenous Affairs in their city government to look at the effects of policy on indigenous people, and that's of Native American descent. And so the American Freedmen, in my research of this topic, is a similar organization that is tasked with finding and managing the affairs of policies or payments back to determined descendants of American slaves. And since we are not pursuing a lineage-based federal-style reparations package, I don't know how effective this would be in terms of establishing this. We would have to create an office within our city government to be able to manage this, and I don't think that is necessary for us to do. We already have an Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion established in our government. To me, this would be a duplicate effort, and I personally don't think the line item is necessary for this particular effort.
Other comments, please.
So this is Commissioner Riley Wright. So just looking at, basically hearing from everybody else, it appears that the majority did not necessarily either see the purpose or agree with this particular item.
Okay.
But I do want to add that it's important to have the history of High Point as related to freedmen and their descendants. And we do have a department within the city that can do that. And in conversation with, and I said department within the city, but it's a part of the library and the museum and all that. And in talking to them, when we started looking at hard figures on genealogy, that can take years to do. What we want to do is get a basic history of how slavery and the freedmen and their descendants have been affected throughout the years from 1859 to present. So I would think that it's important to deal with the history. And again, as far as the Friedman suggestion, that was a suggestion of a department that could step in and provide that information. Again, once council approves whatever they approve and the city receives it, then it will be put out for consideration, and a determination will be made as to who could provide that information in a timely manner. And I hope
So, any other comments regarding this particular budget item? You have that look like I want to say something, please.
So I just wanted to be clear where we were with this particular budget item, and I think that what I'm trying to make sure that we're either, are we maintaining this one, or based on the comments, are we now removing this one?
No, you haven't removed anything at
Okay.
this point.
We're just, I can just put a
providing,
kind of X beside it.
Individual feelings about whether they should or should not be there, and some commentary regarding that. And at the end,
Yes.
you all will make some decisions on which ones to consider removing and which ones you might keep.
I will try not to have the expression of, I need to say.
I am looking forward to playing poker.
This is
with you.
Commissioner. This
All
is
right, thank you,
Commissioner
Sister.
Patrick. I think this kind of conflicts with what we're trying to do right now. Maybe at the end of the program, someone might want to deal with it, but I don't see this as being advantageous to our already solidified program.
So with that, then, we can move on to budget item number 5, which is the proposal for a genealogist at $10,000. Again, I'd ask you to read the feedback, the survey feedback, and then we'll have some discussion. I'll give you an opportunity to share your thoughts about where we might want to go with this. And at this time, we'll entertain your thoughts, please.
This is Commissioner Dietz. I have a question just in reference to, I mean, I definitely agree there should be a genealogist, but the time period, 1859 to 1865 for descendants, is that the correct time frame?
Jerron Hotlis here. The High Point was founded in 1859.
Right.
And so that timeline is when the city was incorporated, and then, of course, 1865 being the emancipation. So it's a relatively short window based on when the city was incorporated and when the Emancipation Proclamation took place. So that's for that short time window. There have been some comments made about, the genealogy process, but so that's for the commission to discuss. But specifically, the years are just the years that High Point was incorporated where slavery was legal.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, please?
Yes, this is Councilman Holmes. I think the genealogist or genealogy work is important from a historical standpoint. We talked about capturing the history and progression of African Americans and descendants of slaves in the city. I think it's important. And I don't know if, no, I'm sorry. I think that that is important work, and I do think that between resources that we have in the library, and I think resources that we have, studies that have already been done, and plus whatever additional subject matter experts come on, I think we can capture what we're looking for. Because as Managing Director Hollis stated, if we're focusing this on the history of slavery in High Point, it is a very, very narrow window of time, from the incorporation of the city to the emancipation in 1865. That is a very tight window. And so that focus is really too narrow, in my opinion, in what we need to do to solve, to look at redressing what took place after that. We know that even though slavery ended in 1865, that the suffering and lingering effects did not. So I think if we get caught up in the narrow window of just looking at the time that slavery existed in High Point, I think we'll miss what we really need to look at.
Absolutely, especially in instance of redlining and discrimination
Yes.
well after that time
Yes.
period.
Yes.
Correct, yeah. Okay.
Any other commentary on this particular line item? If not, then we'll move to budget item number 6, community education on High Point resolution and recommendations. And I'll have you to read the feedback from the survey. And as a part of this process, I think city staff is going to share things that they may be able to facilitate in terms of helping with the education component of this work. Okay, and we'll take your commentary at this time.
So I'd like to say that I think that line item is way too high. But let me reference how it came about. When we first came together as a commission, we put together a PR committee. We had the resolution that we were working from, but there wasn't, and I want to be careful of how I say this, but there wasn't clear direction as to what we were actually doing, okay? And the PR committee put together this recommendation with the hopes of getting huge numbers of High Point residents together in different events, i.e. days at the park and so forth. Also trying to promote what we're doing through T-shirts and caps and those kinds of things. But, you know, actually, this isn't that kind of project. You know, what we're doing is trying to do research and gain data in order to come up with recommendations that will support helping the African American community. What we do need is community input. And in talking with the NAACP, I've had a conversation with them. They are also doing community events. The YWCA did a community event. So by partnering with different organizations and agencies, I don't think that we actually need a budget that high. I know, and in talking to the city, there are portions of this that they can provide, and if food is needed, you know, they can provide it. But when you start talking about $3,000 per event for just food, you know, so what is the event? Is it a sit-down dinner? at, 75 people, $26 each. Yeah, that was my comment. I mean, but, really, what are we looking at? What we want to do is put the content experts in place, have community events where we bring folks together to talk about redlining, or to talk about community safety, or talk about housing in general. And I think we can do that a lot cheaper than the $18,000.
So the chairman has mentioned that there are some things that city staff might be able to do to address this particular budget item. So I would like to ask Mr. Hollis if he would share at this time what might be done.
Thank you, Jerron Hollis again. Mr. Chair, I agree completely with what you're saying. One of the early things that we did when we talked about marketing and communication efforts dealing with the commission is we came in a few months ago and gave some preliminary recommendations. Marketing and promotion and communication, that's a specific lane. We're fortunate here at the city where we actually have a marketing division, and so we offered our expertise. And so just a few comments, and then I asked our marketing manager, Ryan Ferguson, to just provide some quick slides to talk about some things that we could do that would be absorbed in our normal functions. One thing to point out, I see Dr. Lilly in the audience, we saw opportunities to, like the chair said, to partner with the NAACP. So we're not creating an event from scratch. We're using that community partnership. Just for an example, other than staff time, a very successful YWCA forum that we had didn't cost any money. So I think there is to look at what this group is doing. This group is providing recommendations to the city council for implementation. This is not a concert event. We're not trying to drive a particular vote on a bond issue. So I think there was there's some opportunities for education on how we're doing marketing. And lastly, I'd say before Ryan comes up, we're in a place where the abilities that we have to carry out some of these functions in the city help us reach some of these goals, but in a way that will keep the community involved. Once there are policy recommendations that come from this group, it would be important prior to these items going to city council for the community to see the work that has been done. So one definite place for community engagement would be, these are the recommendations that we're talking about, and give the community a chance to see what it is, to see the work that's been done, and then that would be your same group that would be coming to the council meeting to hear the presentation that's being made. So there's some pieces there. I'm going to get out of the way and give Ryan a few minutes to talk about some of the marketing things, and then we can move on to the next item.
Hey, I am Ryan Ferguson, Marketing Manager at the City of High Point. So what everybody has said, I think, is exactly what I was thinking when it comes to how you are approaching what this is. So we did come up with a couple of different ways to try and keep that revenue neutral, which will allow you guys to spend monies in different ways. And we do that very often here at the city. I wish those two guys over there would give me a ton more money, but the way our departments come and talk to us, there's a lot of times that we do a lot of our stuff, which is revenue neutral. How can we get the word out? How can we spread that communication and do our marketing with $0? So we are very experienced in doing that. And just some different ways that we can do such things is, continuing with relevant information on our website. Your guys' goals, your mission, some of that information that you guys find that's given to us, that we can update that website periodically, weekly, daily, however we need to keep that information relevant, to keep it up to date, and that people can go out and get that information whenever they need it. We had Brandon in here earlier, who's also producing our meeting back there, but he's also a photog out here, just taking some candid photos, trying to spruce it up a little bit to give us some visual imagery. That also helps us out with social media, doing doing some social media posts later on. We've already went in and listed keywords to help enhance our search engine optimization, and we have our software attached to it that kind of helps us with links and things like that, just to kind of enhance the website that we have. We also have a PEG TV channel. I'm sure you guys all watch that 24 hours a day. So, believe it or not, it is watched a lot more than what I thought. There are many, actually, restaurants around here that are playing that throughout the day. We use that information, or that channel, to spread some information about everything that's happening within the city, different programs, videos that we have done, as well as kind of a digital billboard. We also have digital billboards around City Hall. When you walk into the first floor, that's playing 24 hours a day. With a ton of information, so we can obviously put those up. Things like meeting times, things that you were talking about, if you have information sessions, things like that, we can really help promote those, not only here, but our other facilities as well, through our digital billboards, through our TV channel, and obviously pushing it back to the website. The next one, social media. Obviously, everybody knows what social media is. We can use our platforms to target different people and who we want to, spread this message out to. We have the ability to do that. Over 114,000 people that are here within the city of High Point. We have a pretty good organic reach that reaches out a lot. So without spending that money on advertising, or what people say boosting posts and things like that, we can hit that reach, a very large reach. The other thing we can do, if we do have these information sessions or some of these things that you had at the YWCA, we can obviously create events on there. That way, we can help push that. And internally, I'll cover that budget. You know what I mean? I'll pick up the tab on some of that advertising. Through social media, you can do that relatively cheaper, to kind of help push events out there. So I do have some money in our budget that we can kind of do that and push. If we have some information session, we really want the public to come out, we can target that through Nextdoor. Say if we're in an Oakview area, we can really target Nextdoor. We can hit that Oakview area and the surrounding neighborhoods around that to really push that message there. And then we can also target that through social media. If we do some Facebook events, we can certainly boost that to try and get those people, especially in that area that that come around, as well as the entire city. So we're kind of hitting all those different platforms to push that message out. And then we always have the traditional media. When we hit a press release, we'll shoot that press release out, and usually if it's a larger event, we'll follow up. We'll pick up the phone and give them a buzz. And I've talked to various news desks multiple times a day. Hey, we got this going on. We got that going on. I want to make sure you're picking this up, whether that's a reporter that's calling me for a story or me reaching out to them saying, hey, did you get this? And, a lot of times the news desk maybe didn't get it to them or they didn't get it. And we make sure we double up on those. So, again, that is it's zero budget impact on that. And then, we do have, if there is any, budgetary impact that would come with print, print works well. I've heard trifolds and flyers, we can, depending on how many we want to print, we can do all the InDesign work, or the design work within our department. The big thing that was big back in the day and kind of went away, and now it's coming back, is everybody's QR codes. And when you're looking at print, you can have information printed on a flyer, on a trifold. It just depends on, now you got to go out and give that person, you know what I mean? And that's fine, and that's all the information they have there. And that, once you print that information, that's all that's on that flyer, it's on that trifold. What we like to do, and is easier, it's better, and it's always up to date, is that we use those QR codes. A lot of times, a lot of different programs, we had a very successful program today, hiring event, that we use these QR code, just 2x2 pieces of paper. We're handing them out to everybody we have. We go out to lunch and you leave your bill and you leave a couple on the table, different restaurants and things like that. You can leave them around town. People can pick that up. They scan that QR code and they can go directly to the website that has all the information that you want. It has those dates. It has the streams of this meeting. It has all that information. And again, minimal impact on that. Another thing that I will certainly pick up the tab on is bill inserts. We can send out 41,000 bill inserts with some information on one side, that QR to send them back to that website again on the back side. That's going to hit the majority of the households within the city. So, that's a very large reach for what your message is. And like I said, I will go ahead and pick up the tab on that. We do have a line budget in there for different things. So if we wanted to do that in February or January, or if we're having an event coming up the month before, we just need to make sure that we have that about a month and a half before, because we got to get that design printed and then out to get those stuffed into our bill. So if we're going to have a fact information thing in say March, we want to have that by mid-January, closer to February at the latest, so we can get that printed and out and over to get stuff. So that's a really good way to get the message out, as well as City Hall kiosks. If you see it down here, every floor, every level, we have some signage. We could put some of them QR code things. We could put information flyers that we can print internally here as well. So those are all different ways of communication that have relatively zero to no budget impact for you guys. That'll allow you to spend your funds somewhere else that might be more advantageous for you guys. So just kind of some of the things that we came up with to kind of help you out. I mean, if you guys want to give me, a couple $100,000, I'll get you a bunch of T-shirts and But those are kind of what me and my department, or division in our department, can kind of help you guys out with.
So Ryan, if you would stay there, are there any questions and comments to what you said, or any questions that you might have?
This is Commissioner Riley, right? Well, I agree with and excited about all the stuff that Ryan said he would take out of his budget and allow us to have. So first and foremost, I'm grateful for that. But I do think that, and I don't know what promotional items, I do think that sometimes in the community, when you do things that people have takeaway things, I'm not saying a whole lot of anything, and anybody that was at the public relations meeting knows I don't want a T-shirt. So maybe a button, a pin, or some other item, something creative that people can take with them. That maybe, I'm not saying, definitely not that $18,000, but just something that, because people just like stuff.
Sure. And you want to make sure, like, what we try and tell each department, everybody likes stuff, right? I mean, you go to some place and you have free pens and stuff like that. You want to make sure that your stuff has a purpose and has a meaning, and it's driving them to do something, to go somewhere, to call to action, or whatever you're giving out. The university gives out T-shirts, it says, "I love High Point University," to help promote that kind of stuff. We give out stuff that has City of High Point, notebooks and things like that to kind of, so yes, that is, but we always try and look and make sure that we have people that are or letting departments know, essentially, when we work with it, there's a purpose and there's a call to action to each one of those, to make sure that we are good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars. So, but yes, definitely. Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
I would like very much if you would go back to the social media page that you did, and let me just get a picture of that. I couldn't write fast enough to get everything down there.
Oh, we can certainly share this
I'll
presentation with
just take a
everybody.
picture of it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
This is Councilman Holmes. I'm so glad that we had this. I'm glad staff was here, because I think one thing that people may not be forgetting is that this is also a city commission. And it has access to city resources and city staff. And so as we think about budgeting this item, this is not something that has to be budgeted independent necessarily of city resources. So as we think about line items, and Ryan is absolutely right in terms of what the effect of any promotional materials have to have. So for me, if someone gave me a T-shirt, great. More than likely, I'll end up cutting the grass in it or something like that. But if someone gave me a very well-produced outline of the commission with the policy, prescriptions, and everything, I'm going to read that cover to cover. I have one from Kansas City that was produced by the city of Dallas that I've been reading since I got back, getting ideas from that. And I've gone to their website several times. I've researched deeper after experiencing that and looking at that policy prescription that they put into that piece of information that I took away. And so if our goal here is to educate people on the effects and potential solutions that we're producing in this commission, education has to be the key. And every piece of material has to educate the public on our efforts and get them to understand what we're doing here. So I like stuff too, but I think this is an important effort that needs a greater level of education than just having people have stuff.
And certainly, you know, if you have a copy of that, or if we can kind of get our hands on it, just kind of take a look at that, we can, you know, certainly see what we can do to kind of help replicate that, something that is that tangible item that people would want, that maybe we could replicate.
And I want to go back and say that the PR committee did a yeoman's job in what they did based on the information that they had, okay? But we have just been introduced to a whole series of resources that are available to us that we haven't tapped into.
Right.
And just like the city has a website, NAACP has a website, each of us have Facebook pages. I mean, there are lots of ways we can get the information out. Everybody in the city gets an electric bill.
Right.
You know? So, and I want to apologize to my colleagues on the right, because I keep turning to the left, because, you know, Commissioner Dees and Commissioner McCauley are new to this, so, you know, if I appear to be,
Yeah,
I'm always conscious of that, because when I'm sitting out and looking up, that's one of the things I pay attention to, especially when preachers are preaching to one side, and I'm sitting over here. I need it more than anybody else, so, got that, Pastor Lily? So,
Commissioner McCauley. I appreciate all of this and knowing all of this about the media and different ways we have of getting things out. I do have, and that was the question I had before the statement was just made, but somebody just said everybody gets the bill from the city, but there are members of our community who do not get a bill from the city.
That is, you're actually correct. Everybody is not getting an electric bill that's in the city, because we do not have, Duke Power and the city of High Point both provide that. Now, we do provide the water. So if you are a resident and you're getting either a water bill or a power bill, that would come from the city of High Point. Some power bills might come from Duke Energy. And not every single person, like you said, does get that bill insert in a bill. And truthfully, when that bill comes to my house, you know what I mean, I'm paying online. So most of the time, I don't even open that bill. We do have on our customer service page a place for those bill inserts. Every bill insert is located on that customer service page. Now, does your average resident go out and say, well, let's go to the customer service page to see what the bill insert was? No, not at all. But, you know, there are different multiple ways that we have it out there, both digitally, and even if we do create that bill insert, and we would also create that in a form that we could blast over social media, we can have it on the web page itself, more of a flyer versus just that rack card system that we have that goes into the bill system.
But I am concerned about people who don't even get the water bill, because we do have residents, like in public housing,
Sure.
who, you know, that rent statement covers everything, and they don't get anything separate like that. And so those are some of the people who, of course, have a lot of times been affected by some of these policies and would be affected by any changes made as well. So I just want to be cognizant of anything that we do, that we're reaching as many different areas of the community as possible, these types of.
And I stand corrected, because you're absolutely right, and my background is public housing, so, you know.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, to that point, and you make a great point. One of the miracles of technology, what is it, Ryan? 98%? 98% of people have a smartphone. And I'll bet everyone here has a smartphone, regardless of your level of technology engagement. So if we are looking at a particular event, we have the technology to be able to literally draw a fence around the area. So if we knew, okay, we want to make sure that some of the groups that you're talking about are reached, we can actually make sure that when they open up those phones, that they get that information. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. Whether it's this commission or anything that we do, we always have the challenge of trying to reach people in different ways. So that would be a way, because we've had to do that before, whether it's next door or what have you. So I
And
think that was
even,
important.
even outside of technology, because, like you said, most people have, believe it or not, do have smartphones. Outside of that technology, we work with partners all over the city. So whether it's, people like the Housing Authority, Visit High Point, the Chamber, that information is going to get spread out amongst all of our partners, the YWCA, the NAACP. So we are, it's not one, and we say this all the time, we don't like to just throw darts, we like to target who we're trying to hit, and we just don't do it in one platform. Like, we wouldn't dump just everything on the website. We would put all that information on the website and then a bunch of different channels on how they can get there, through our partners and their newsletters and their email blasts and our TV channel and through the news. So we kind of take a shotgun approach to try and hit our target area. So I 100% get what you're saying there. Not everybody is on Facebook. You know what I mean? We understand the demographics and we use our analytics on what social media platforms to post to, because I can tell you right now that, Kiva might not be on TikTok, but if I want to hit high school people up to college age, then I know that I'm going to need to put it on TikTok, versus if I want to hit the media, I got to put that on Twitter. So we take a look at that approach on everything outside of just social media on how we spread our message. So there's more ways than just technology. Again, print are some of those, partnerships are some of those. So we try and ensure that we really get that word out as much as possible. And especially when it comes to, potentially what you're talking about, some of these impacts is what's going to happen is after you guys do your fact finding and present this, then I would assume after that, that's when, we're talking about these programs and getting those people involved. Then I think that's when it would be more of than what we are doing right this minute, if that makes sense. And that's where a lot of our partners will come into play and really help spread that message and work with us on that.
So I have a question for Jerron and for Ryan.
Sure.
Would it be fair to say that in addition to doing all that you've just described over the past few minutes, that the city will be willing to sit down with the commission to talk about those folk that you may not be able to reach in traditional ways, and they come up with some creative ways of actually reaching out to those folk?
Yeah. Part of this process is feedback, in this case, from the customer. So as the chair designates whoever, we want to have that conversation with, we can modify, change, because the end product the goal is to be something that represents what the commissioner is trying to achieve. So, yes.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or commentary before we move on? All right, thank you all. That's really great discussion. I think the next thing on our list is budget item number 7, which is the documentation of this One High Point Commission and reparations process.
I'm a little slow. Can we go back to item 6 in terms of the timeline for sending this out? This is beginning in January. Do we feel that is
Just give it.
premature, or will we be prepared in January to do this, or? Because I just heard we need a lead time of 45 days if we wanted to do the inserts and stuff like that.
Well, actually, we're looking at as we move forward, and once we've presented the budget to the city and it's approved, then
So it'll be 45
we can-
days from now.
We can better focus
Okay.
on setting timelines.
Okay.
It was just
Okay.
just
Thank you.
Although we did do a free educational meeting.
You get your answer?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So if we could move on to budget item number 7, which talks about documentary, and there's been a great deal of talk about documenting this process electronically. And so this is, you see the feedback that you've gotten from the members in the survey. And again, we'll give you about a minute to go through that, and then we'll give you an opportunity for commentary and questions that you might have, and some decision around this proposed $11,000 to do this work. So comments or questions, please?
This is Commissioner Robert Williamson. When it comes to the documentary team that is filming the commission and the journey we're taking, what, has there been a vetting process for the company that's doing the documentary?
Nobody's doing
As
that.
far as I am aware, that we have not reached a point for a vetting process yet. In order to have a vetting process, the budget has to be decided on by you all. It has to be presented to city council, and once city council approves it, then you start the vetting process, but there is no vetting process.
Okay, because I was under the impression that the documentary filming had already started. Am I correct, or am I wrong?
That is probably an accurate statement, but that there's no connection between that entity and that one High
Okay.
Point Commission or the city.
Okay.
Is that clear?
This is Councilman Holmes. I think there was an independent effort at the beginning to begin the documentary process, and then it was folded in to what the plan and request. And I think there, in the resolution, if I'm not mistaken, is some form of documentation of this effort. It wasn't clearly explicitly stated that it would be a documentary film, but it was, a document to capture this moment in time as we take on this historic effort. I think it became, because some efforts that were already underway, that it would be a film. But there's been no formal scope of work. There's been no determination on what the outcomes would be. There's been, no discussion amongst the group on, what the direction of any documentation of this effort would be. And so it hasn't been put in the position for us to be able to decide to go forward with any type of documentation. Now, if we decide that from this point on, there has to be a procurement process. We have to launch an RFP. We have to take bids from multiple vendors, and we're 6 months in, Commissioner Williamson. I don't know how effective of a product we would be able to produce at that point. And so I think the idea of this effort sounds good. I just think the way that we've been led into this, I don't think lends itself to it being, a sufficient effort for us to be able to get what we could potentially get out of this. And so, for me, this line item, I think should be excluded from.
And I agree.
Because if we want to debate the merits of a documentary, that's fine. But I think this line item, as it stands, without having any information on what $11,000 gets us, I just think it doesn't make sense to include it in this budget.
And my next question is, wouldn't it be, once we propose do our proposal to the city, wouldn't it be already being documented at that time, like, since it is public information and it's a public setting, or how we're being broadcast on YouTube?
So you're absolutely right. Every photos, all of our streaming, everything is captured. Everything is up on our social media, our YouTube channel. All these efforts, all these meetings are recorded. So it is captured in posterity now. If we wanted to decide to go back and to put this in effort, testimonials from individuals, I think we had the wherewithal within the city. Ryan's group could be able to do that for us if we wanted to then, at the end, produce some type of captured moment from this effort. So, but had this been introduced in the beginning, in the budget session in the beginning, and we followed the proper process, then this very well could have been something that we undertook, and I think it possibly would have been a good idea. But to introduce this 6 months in with literally no information about what we're getting for $11,000 and no vendor, I don't see how this can be included in the budget.
This is Commissioner Riley Wright. I do agree with some type of documentary. I wasn't real sure about the film production part of it. I do also feel like we are a long ways in to figure out where somebody would start documenting. And I apparently dived in pretty good on this one because I was calling people and waiting for people to call me back because I had no clue what $11,000 purchased either. So I started calling people who had expertise in this area and waiting for them to call me back. And they had a lot of questions so that I did not have answers to. And so some of their questions were, how long do we want this deliverable item to be? Did we want a docu-series? After all, y'all gonna know which one is mine. So, and they had some questions. Where would it be housed? Where are we trying to put this particular item? And they talked about, and the prices ranged based on whatever we decided we wanted out of this documentary. So just to throw the term out there like that was not enough information to get clear information at all. Somebody told me that they could probably do $11,000 for about 8 hours a day. And somebody else was at $40,000 based on what we're doing if they do it for the next 7 months or what have you. So I didn't know to tell them what they were getting it from. I told them about going to the audio stuff and things like that. But at the stage that we're at, I think it's going to be a little challenging. Maybe somebody can pull it all something together later or as we go from this point and start putting things together. But do I, at this point, even after diving in and calling people, actually know if 11,000, I think $11,000 is not enough. But I don't know that we have that kind of, those kind of funds to put into that project.
Other comments, I'm sorry.
No, I completely agree with Commissioner Riley, right? I just don't, I don't think it's really the number assigned. I just don't think we have enough of a plan to pull this off. I don't think we have enough direction or information. I don't think we have a scope of work. I don't think we have an understanding of what we want to achieve. I just don't, any project that you do, you plan that before you assign any budget, because you know exactly what you want to have as your achievable. We're working backwards on this. Yeah. And I don't see how this can actually be successful if we haven't agreed on what we're trying to get as the end as the end product. It's like throwing a whole bunch of stuff in the oven and hoping it comes out a cake. You know, and I don't think that's fruitful.
So I want to go back to a statement that was made earlier, and that there are things we might want, and there are things that we need. And right now, we're dealing with what we need. So when we start looking at these different line items, let's just keep that in mind, because our end goal is to present the city with recommendations to change policies to help those that have not been able to take advantage of opportunities in the past. As far as a documentary goes, I too agree that we're so far into this that a true documentary could not be produced, but I want to lean on the city when we have community events to maybe record some what is happening and some of the comments that are made by the community if they agree to be filmed, just to put clips together to go along with the audios that we have, because we're recorded every time we get together. And brother facilitator, our timeline. So we got a couple more that we need to walk through, and
Okay, so let's do that. Let's do that. And I want to get on the brother about talking about my wife's cookie that night. So then the last budget item, number 9, has to do with stipends for the commission members.
Hey, you skipped
Project manager.
Oh, am I going to see, he was rushing me, I'm going too fast, okay. It is the project manager. And so we'll have you to read the feedback from the survey which was provided by commission members, and then we'll have your commentary and questions regarding a project manager for the One High Point Commission process. Take your commentary and questions at this time, please.
I think a couple of the, this is Councilman Holmes, Commissioner Holmes. I think if, there's a couple of comments that ask about the services of you, Mr. Ratchford and Dr. Wade. And could you draw a distinction between what you're doing right now as a service and what potentially a project manager brought on would be doing that different from what you guys provided?
And so what we're providing, or what we have provided during the time that we've worked with you, is facilitation services like we're doing tonight, as well as some other things. With project manager, that this is going to be, in my opinion, is more hands-on and will involve a whole lot more time than the contract that we've signed with you would require of us. And of course, we would want some additional money if we did that, but that's another conversation. We made it clear from the beginning that we are not content experts, and that we would work with your content experts to help you all get the information that you all needed to actually do this work. We'll be available if content experts say that let's have a community meeting and that needed facilitation. We're available to actually do that. But as far as being in place to do the day-to-day work that's going to end up being a report that's submitted to City Council at some point in the future, we did not sign on to do that.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I'm not mistaken, if you give me a minute or so here, in my estimation, the project manager that we would bring on would be tasked with managing the content experts, compiling the data and recommendations, policies that they put together, assembling it into a final draft document of recommendations that would go to the city, and then also creating what could potentially be an implementation strategy, in addition, that we could offer the city as well. Is that relative to the scope of work that we were thinking that the project manager would take on?
Yeah, that's pretty much what my opinion of what a project manager will do. To Mr. Ratchford's point, this is a hands-on person. See, volunteers are vital to any project. But volunteers can do what they want to, when they want to, how they want to, with whomever they want to. And all you can be is upset. With a paid person, they will be held to producing results. And if they don't, they're paid. So now in this situation, if the city if city council approves the budget and a project manager, the project manager will actually report to the city. You know, I mean, that's just how it goes. And they can actually assign that person to work with the commission. So I'm looking at a person that do all the things you said, provide us with regular reports that we can review to make sure that we feel we're on track with the end result. But I've kind of taken on that role, but I really can't do it, you know, and the only way is getting done now is that I've got a lot of help with city staff, a lot of help with NAACP members, and then there are other people in the community that I just know that have stepped in and provided some of those services. But we really need, from this point moving forward, somebody that we can lock in to set timelines and hold that person to meeting those timelines. So that's my thought.
Chairman Austin, if I might help with your great explanation, there may be some commissioners who are concerned that you would have a project manager who reports to city staff. And the truth of the matter is that functionally, that person would report to the commission. Administratively, they report to city
Right.
staff.
Yeah.
So there's that connection.
Right.
That becomes the nexus between the commission and city staff with regards to the day-to-day work of the One High Point Commission.
I would also offer that the scope of work for that individual will be defined in a contract, and whatever that contractual agreement was, it was going to be, which the commission as well as city would have an opportunity to review.
Right.
And so that would create the transparency and the accountability that is required for that type of project, and certainly that's been an interest of commission members.
Other commentary or questions regarding the project manager?
I believe this is Commissioner Riley, right? I believe this is a very important position or line item, because we do need somebody that's qualified and has the knowledge to put this together appropriately, because we don't want our information to be displayed inappropriately or taken inappropriately because it's not lined up the proper way. So somebody with the skills and the knowledge would be a great thing to have.
And I think to Commissioner Austin's point, if you all think about it, y'all meet once a month. And a lot of stuff sort of falls by the wayside. Even with your subcommittees, things still fail by the wayside because of this gap in time between your meetings. And so a project manager essentially becomes the glue that holds all of that together from month to month.
In addition to that, that person actually looks at the charter that the commission was founded by, looks at the objectives, the deliverables, and that person can also consult with the chair as well as leadership and other commissioners, just to make you aware where you are and where this project should be. So it is an important position.
Other commentary, questions, please? If not, we'll move to the final budget item, which is number 9, and this is stipends of $23,400 for the commissioners for various purposes, including mileage. If you all will go ahead and read the feedback, the survey feedback from your fellow commission members, and then, as before, we'll have some commentary and questions regarding this particular item.
So I'll start the discussion on that. And I said early on that, each one of us actually applied to be on this commission. And we knew when we applied to be on this commission that there was no stipend or pay associated with it. We are a city commission, and if what you do for one group, you have to do for all. So that would take policy changes on the city's part on how they operate their commissions. Again, yes, I'd love to get paid, because anytime that I'm here or working on this, I'm not getting paid because I'm a contractor. So, but I applied for this and therefore agreed to put the work in to get it done. So I'm against stipends. Asheville does it, true. But Asheville's project is community-based, not city-based. And Asheville started their process with revenue, large sum of revenue, that they had to figure out how we're going to spend this money. And that's a conversation I had with the chair of the Asheville Commission. So if we were in a different situation, then yes. But that's not where we are. That's just not where we are.
This is Commissioner Riley Wright. So I kind of like the bottom line thing. So if we're basing it on what we see here as what everybody contribute to their thoughts on it, it looks like it comes out, because it looks like there's more against than there are for it. And again, we did agree. I didn't hear anybody offer me any money. I like money, but nobody offered me any money when I agreed to do this particular work.
And I would just, this Councilman Holmes, I would just like to echo Chairman Austin's point. There's no other commission, Human Relations, CAC, no other commission in the city receives stipends. So that we would be setting a precedent in the city.
Yeah, the Commissioner Dietz, I'm confused as to how this even became a budget item, first day out here, but
Right.
again, we're all volunteers, so the amount that's on here is not something that would, I think, be an incentive for someone to come on and serve on a committee. We're all here because we're wanting to do things for our community, right?
Absolutely.
We're wanting to do the right thing, so I was confused as to how this even made it on here, so.
I think this falls into that category of, in terms of budget items, it's what you want versus what you need.
Okay.
And this was a want thing, and even in the way that it's actually is asked, using the Asheville group as a model, who gets reimbursed for food. I have been to every meeting that you all have had, and there has not been one meeting where they did not feed you. So why would you get additional money for food after being fed? But anyway, that's my thing.
Yeah.
Other questions or commentary?
And I don't want it to be mistaken from, because I've heard these other terms before, that I don't want it to be mistaken for, we don't value who we are. I always value who I am. So if you want to waste your time telling me that, that's a whole nother thing. But many of the things that I've done in life that I value, I did not get paid for. If I got paid for half of the things that I do because I value them, I'd have a lot more money. So.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so our time has gotten by us. We have gone through the budget line items. I think we stated in the beginning, or a little into the meeting, that we would make some decisions after a review of all of the line items. And so now you all need to make some decisions about which of these you would like to keep or to adjust or to delete, and then come up with a final budget that you will then, I think we'll need to take a vote on to present to the city of High Point for consideration.
So are we going by budget item and doing a vote for each item?
I think that's going to be up to your chairman. you can just quickly go through them and decide which ones you want to strike out, period, and then come back in with the others, see if you want to make some adjustments, and then finalize your vote. But, and that's just a suggestion for me. You all may want to do it differently, but it's 100% up to you.
Mr. Chair, if I can make a suggestion, I think if we do this by essentially straw vote, go down the line and say, keep it, nix it, or whatever it may be, I think we get to the end of that.
And I agree, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. So, let's just walk down the line items, and the first thing we want to do is determine which ones we want to scratch, just totally scratch. So you have the proposed budget for $20,000 content expert, $10,000 for redlining, $10,000 for economists, $5,000 for the history, $10,000 for genealogists, $18,000 for community education, $11,000 for documentary. I say scratch.
We went on that part
Well-
yet. Hold on.
Commissioner Austin, I think we should have some type of documentary. We don't want to go through all of this work and not have any kind of record at all.
We do.
We will have-
Every meeting we have is recorded.
Okay, got about that.
Every meeting we have is recorded, from start to finish. So I propose that we strike documentary.
Okay.
You make a motion?
Yes. And it's been properly seconded. You heard the question. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. Documentary is out. Next line item is project, $15,000 for project manager. And the last one is $23,400 for the stipend. I make a motion, we scratch it. It's been properly moved and second. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. Stipends are out.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that budget item 2 through 5 be stricken in favor of budget item 1.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that we eliminate line item 2, 3, and, was it 2, 3, and 4, or 2, 3, 4, and 5?
2, 3, 4, and 5.
2, 3, 4, and 5. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. They are eliminated from the budget. I would like to make a motion that we reduce the amount of the community education piece to, and I don't want to take it to nothing, but a ceiling of $5,000 to be used up to. Not that we have to use the entire $5,000, but up to $5,000 for that line item.
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed likewise.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just a point of discussion before we take the vote. For this is a question for staff. Of this $10,000, if we take it down to 5,
You mean 18?
I'm sorry, 18,
18.
I'm sorry. If we take it down to 5, can staff absorb up to the point of difference that we're reducing this? Is there, say for instance, if we do find that we need to exceed 5,000,
Right.
Will staff be able to absorb that? Because we would have to then amend this budget. So my concern is that, you know, it's too drastic a cut, potentially. Unless you can assure us that the resources would be there if we exceeded $5,000.
I think based on what the commission expressed that they needed, and based on what Mr. Ferguson said that we could provide, I think if you're reducing the number to $5,000, I think that would be adequate. In fact, I'll take another step. The only thing that would go beyond the normal capacity of our operation would be if there was some specific item that for some reason could not be absorbed. But I mean, if we're talking about rack cards, if we're talking about things that we're printing and handouts, that number is plenty. We could probably do it for less based on what Ryan proposed is pretty much revenue neutral. And I didn't hear, based on what I heard from the commission, I didn't hear $18,000, even $5,000 worth of additional items unless there was something else that was brought in place. But that would be my answer.
Just wanted to make sure that we left ourselves enough room that if we did need to produce something that fell outside of the ability of the city, then we had enough in our budget to cover.
Yeah, and I think having a discussion of what those things would be, that if we didn't cover them tonight, then we need to kind of know what that is, because it would have to be something significant. Like if we said we want to bring in a stage actor to, you know, if we want to bring Samuel L. Jackson to come in and dramatize some of this, we're going to be back at the table for a budget. But I can't foresee anything out of normal processes that would allow us to come to the table.
Mr. Austin?
Yes.
May I ask a question here? We're talking about community education of High Point resolution and recommendation to see school. Does that not entail people going to work, getting a job, and maybe even going to school at GTCC? Does that entail all of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that falls under our final recommendations of what the community needs. It doesn't fall within the realm of the budget that we have to work on, because there's nobody we need to send to school to do anything that we're doing right now.
But,
And that's a
okay,
good point. Yeah, no, but it's a good point, because as part of the recommendation to assist the community, yes, we need to get people back to work, we need to do all
get them
those-
trained and
That's right.
get in school and just
But-
everything that they need.
Mhm.
So is $5,000 going to be enough to do that?
Yeah, so let me just clarify,
Unless-
since we're in the discussion piece of this motion, let me clarify why I said 5,000. Number one, we don't have to pay for facilities. We have marketing that will be assisting us. We're going to partner with other agencies, so we're not creating events and activities just straight from scratch and doing it alone. So I really think that we'll be able to absorb that.
Okay, we're talking about tuitions if.
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
We're talking about two
they're two
separate
separate
issues.
Two separate things?
Commissioner Patrick, this is Councilman, I think the distinction we're making is public education about the One High Point Commission effort. We
Yes.
want people to understand the work that this commission is doing. We're not talking about education in terms of skills or advanced post-secondary education. We're talking about people understanding what this commission is doing, educating them on the work of the One High Point Commission. So like we had a community forum where people came out and they asked questions about what we're doing, we would then have the ability at with public education dollars to be able to respond and give them information on the commission itself and what reparations and what restorative economic policies are. The education you're talking about has to do with school reform and college accessibility, and those are things that would come later in our policy recommendations on how we get access to underserved communities in that regard.
So
Okay,
this
you
line
said one
item
thing
could have
would
been
come
called,
later.
yeah, this line item could have been called public relations as opposed to community education.
Okay.
So we have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. So that line item is 5,000 and it's up to $5,000. The last line item is the project manager. And I'd like to entertain, make a motion that we accept that proposed amount and that line item.
Second.
A discussion. Well, let me say that when researching project managers and the cost of a person actually doing this, yeah, that cost for, at the time I was looking at 6 months, and that cost was about $14 an hour, you know, really. And we could work with that, but I don't want to increase the budget much, but I really think that we need to increase that more than 15,000, you know.
Are you thinking that the timeline will be past June? So they may be working more than 6 months, or?
That's a possibility. Is that, are we able to come back and revisit that if that timeline is extended?
I think the important thing would be to set out the terms. I think whoever the project manager would be,
Okay.
there'll be a way to maximize that time. And so in the initial discussion, it would be talking about what the expectations would be. And a lot of times what we do is we back them into the cost of what we have available, and they'll tell you what they have. But yeah, if we're doubling the time, let's say if this time was extended, we would need, I think you would need the flexibility to either upfront or there will be some measure of additional funds to close it out. But I defer to Councilman Holmes on that from a budget standpoint, but.
Yeah, so I think without, I think we're doing estimates on, just projections on what we've researched, then I think the number is appropriate. If we have an idea that there's gonna be an increased scope of work, then we may need to set that budget number higher, not to exceed.
Okay.
And so if we do that and go ahead and establish, that gives us the flexibility to be able, if they come in under budget, we're good. But if they do need additional time, it gives us the flexibility to be able to say that. So if we said, that we would increase the budget, 15,000, but not to exceed 20,000.
Okay.
And that would give us the flexibility on whatever time, based on the hourly rate of project manager.
Okay, so Robert's rules, if I made the motion, am I allowed to make a friendly amendment to the motion?
Well, Mr. Chairman, as chairman, you should not be making a motion, period.
Now you tell them.
So let's back up.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we accept budget item 8 with the amendment of the budget number to $20,000 to $20,000 not to exceed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
No, that's proper.
Okay. All right, so it's been properly moved and second that we set a ceiling of $20,000 for that line item. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. All right, since we did I did make motions for these others, so can
Go back
can
to
I,
that again.
I would like to entertain a motion to accept all that we've done before that point.
I move to make a motion that we accept the prior budget items.
Okay. Do I hear a second? It's been properly moved and seconded that we accept all of those line items that we previously talked about. Are you ready for the question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed likewise. All right, now we are in order. So, I will ask staff to draft a document to reflect what we've done tonight.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I think based on our rough math, that the new budget total is $45,000. Denise, if you can confirm that. One point, just, and I don't know if this is something that you're going to talk about tonight, but because of the scope of what we'll be asking potentially the subject matter expert to do. Okay, I just want to make sure that that's combined with that budget as we're preparing our documents. Thank you.
Okay, so what Mr. Hollis is referring to, we are 6 months into this project. The first 6 months, we were going through what I call organizational pains, which is not unlike any other organization that is in place. Because we are not at the point that we should be at 6 months, upon approval of our budget, I want to also get permission to speak with council to extend the project to the first council meeting in January of 2024, which would give the content experts, and that's up to that first meeting in 2024. That gives the content experts ample time to do a thorough job in producing a document that we can all agree on and get it to council without holding them to a 6-month time limit. And again, that's up to January, the first meeting in January.
Yeah, and this is Jerron Hollis again. So at the time that we enter into whatever conversations or negotiations, we would provide them with that timeline. So they would understand going in what that hard stop is, so we wouldn't have any surprises through the process. So that's.
So if you all agree on that, I would like to entertain a motion that I'm giving the opportunity to have that conversation. Got a motion, do I have a second?
Let's just make sure I understand. So this says the report would be 12 months from the date of the first meeting. So now we're saying 12 months from
6 months.
6.
Well, yes, in essence, we're talking about 12 months from this point.
Okay.
That would be an additional 6 months after what was the original delivery date.
Which was June 2020.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And again, that's up to.
Up to, yep.
If we get those documents and get those reports at any time between there, but we do need to at least extend it, to give them ample time because we've got to do the procurement process and vetting and all those things. So,
Along with that, now did I see where there will be 2 meetings of this commission?
well, I hadn't gotten to that yet.
Okay.
So, this is Commissioner Riley, right? So in that extension, that also extends the time of us as a commission as well.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we're clear about that and everybody's commitment to that as well, because we don't want to leave that portion out, because that's an important portion. We're not just going to have project managers and content people out here working. We'll still be working too.
So in light of that, if at any point a commissioner is not able to fulfill that timeline, then the selection committee is still in place. It's never been dissolved. And, you know, things happen. So we do have the ability to fill any vacant seats that may happen in that length of time. I'm hoping that we don't, but, you know, we always have that fail-safe.
And just something to keep in mind, if you get to the point through the process and there is nothing to report, the commission does have the flexibility to cancel a meeting if there's no update. So you've got some flexibility, because you might be in a holding pattern waiting for research or a document, or it might just be an update. So there's some flexibility in that time frame to Commissioner Wright's question. There's some flexibility in how often you meet based on if there's something to meet about. So you wouldn't be locked in necessarily to X number of meetings unless you actually have content to discuss, if that, just a point of clarification to your question.
Okay. So did I get a motion and a
You got the motion. I need the second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are you ready for the question?
So what?
There's just a
We did-
motion. Where
Just
did
a
you get your
motion.
We got, okay, we now have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed likewise. Okay. I want to table the discussion on the 2 meetings a month until January, or such time that we have content experts and we can really start moving forward with discussions and actually have something to actually make determination on as we move forward.
So Commissioner Riley Wright, so I guess now that we have this information in place, now one of my next questions would be, is how soon will we be putting out information about these particular positions? Because we are in a time frame when people don't really like to work. So how fast are we going to get that information out there and see who's available to start working?
Well, our process would be, the immediate next step would be to compile a request based on the $45,000. That would be.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. We're not approved yet. I felt like we had some money. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Stop there.
I need to take my seat.
Remember she said she likes money. Since Councilman Holmes is on the finance committee, we'll just say publicly that he approved it while we were.
I jumped the whole gun right there. I'm so sorry. Yes, it did.
Okay, so at this point, we're open for comments, but we've stayed to our timeline. I really appreciate the conversation tonight. I think that we got a lot accomplished. And I think that we are really on track to make a difference here in High Point, because one of the things I always refer back to per former Commissioner Charles Hensley, creating the single most livable, safe, and prosperous community in America. And unless everybody is prosperous, then that will never happen. So,
Jerron House here again. On the one of the earlier discussions and assignments, there were some sub-work group assignments. In reviewing that, on our staff reviewing that, it might be advisable to wait until we have the confirmation for budget to see where the subject matter experts will actually land before, speaking of time, before the commissioners spend a lot of their time on particular items. I think we have that particular look of which areas those subject matter experts will entertain, that might inform what work groups, that might modify it, reduce it, change it, something similar to the budget. Because I know we were talking about work that's going on between meetings, so we're kind of in a holding pattern until we get to the budget discussion.
and to add to that, you know, those that are on the different subcommittees do have access to the subject matter experts if you need to, at that point, once that person, that team or whatever is in place, to coordinate activities, information with that group, which may make it a lot easier to meet your goals in the subcommittees, which we'll talk about that.
We're gonna have.
Commissioner Deeks and Commissioner McCauley.
So this is Commissioner Riley, right? That bothers me just a tad.
Okay.
And the reason that bothers me is that means that we go some more time without getting any work done. And that's concerning to me. So if we can still be working towards something and not, so it sounds like, unless I heard you incorrectly, now our brakes are on until we have an approved budget. And if we're not doing, I mean, that bothers me.
You can continue to do the research that you're doing, working with the groups. I'm just saying that once we bring the content experts on, because the budget is centered around the content experts to deal with the other areas of our resolution, not those areas that are assigned to subcommittees. And I know you and others, because I've talked to Mr. Sims also, who has a report ready to turn in based on the research that he's done, and I'm sure others have also started work. So don't stop what you're doing. We'll just discuss it further once we get into the new year.
Commissioner Austin, this is Commissioner Patrick. I'm gonna ask you everything I need to ask you. Number one, will we have a meeting again this year? Number two, does that mean we should not have a town hall meeting, or should we continue working on the town hall meeting? Because my job was to find the oldies that could tell the stories of
No, continue to do what you're doing. But we won't have a town hall meeting this month.
Okay,
We have to sit down and work out the schedule of when we're gonna have those events, activities.
Okay.
Again, we can partner with other groups as they have activities and information sessions set up. So no, don't stop what you're doing.
This is Commissioner Holmes. I think Commissioner Riley Wright, I think you and I were also tasked with planning those community events. Now that we have the idea that some of the outreach materials are revenue neutral, they can be produced internally, and also we have coordination with the NAACP, those are things that we can do until the budget is approved. We can go ahead and plan those events and then set those up in coordination. So we don't have to stop that work. We can still
one
plan
thing
the
I guess I must have assumed that. I was checking out places to have the town hall. So you and Commissioner Wright are doing that?
No, we can all, I think if we're talking about the constitution of the PR committee, those are tasked in the PR committee. So if we want to continue to work and plan in our committee, we're free to do that work if I'm not misstating myself, Mr. Chairman.
And the NAACP is waiting for you guys to get with them, so they can set dates and times and activities and so forth, so.
This is Commissioner Riley Wright. I just don't want us to be sitting around not working towards something, which is our purpose for being here.
Right.
While we're waiting on a budget. I don't like it when things get in the way and you just got to stop. That's been the concern from the start, is us not moving forward. And I want to make sure that we're moving forward. And education should never be stopped. It should be happening some kind of way.
Commissioner Wright, Jerron House here. I would say from a staff perspective, this is the most productive meeting that we've seen that the commission has had so far. And I think some of the work that you've completed today, if a few months ago we would have tried to do this, would have taken several meetings. So you, because of the efficiency that you've had in this meeting, you bought yourself several weeks of being able to enjoy Christmas. So this has been a very, very, very productive meeting. And so I think the commission's efforts need to be applauded of what you were able to accomplish tonight. So my 2 cents.
I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You cut the mics off? No. This was your meeting.